Hi, I'm Katie Teague with the Division of Agriculture, County Extension Agent in Washington County. While we all do appreciate a very good rain that fills the lake and keeps our landscape watered, too much of a good thing can be a problem. In this section of the LakeSmart program today, we're going to talk a little bit about runoff management and things you can do in and around your property. Before we get started, let's make sure we're all on the same page, understanding exactly what runoff is and how it affects you as a lakefront landowner. To understand stormwater runoff, let's focus on precipitation as a component of the water cycle. Whenever precipitation falls to earth in the form of rain, sleet, snow, or hail, it does one of two things. The water either soaks into the ground and recharges groundwater resources, or it flows across the land's surface into creeks, streams, rivers, and lakes. This water that flows across the landscape is called runoff or stormwater runoff. This graphic illustrates the fate of precipitation once it reaches the earth. Under natural conditions, before a landscape is developed, approximately half of the rain that falls will soak into the soil, becoming part of the groundwater system, while only about 10% flows across the land's surface as runoff. But as the landscape is developed and begins to include things like roads, homes, and driveways, these impervious surfaces block the infiltration capacity of the soil and generate more runoff. Even with minimal development like we see around the lake, only 10 to 20% of the landscape is covered with impervious surfaces, such as roofs, concrete, asphalt, things like that. We see that groundwater recharge is now reduced and the volume of runoff has doubled, up to 20%. I need to emphasize that the impacts of increased imperviousness are twofold. One, the volume of water available to recharge your groundwater wells is reduced, but then two, more runoff is generated, increasing the transport of pollutants, including nutrients, sediment, bacteria, pesticides, and automotive fluids to local creeks, streams, and the lake itself. Once these pollutants reach the lake, the effects can include things like lower dissolved oxygen levels that reduce the quality of sportfish habitat, algae blooms that reduce fishing, swimming, or other recreational opportunities, and increased costs for processing lake water for municipal drinking water supplies. You need to recognize that as lakeside landowners, your property serves as the last line of defense to prevent stormwater pollution. Some stormwater runoff pollutants are easy to see, like this muddy plume of sediment washing into a lake from a tributary stream. In fact, the EPA lists sediment as the most common pollutant in streams, rivers, lakes, and reservoirs, and Beaver Lake is no exception. The bottom line is that by reducing runoff from your lakefront property, you can help protect the quality and integrity of the lake. Now let's learn how. As homeowners, there are a variety of ways that we can minimize the volume of runoff from our property. Things like taking an umbrella survey, capturing rainwater for later use, enhancing infiltration, or disconnecting paved surfaces. Let's examine each of these now in greater detail. When there's a slow, steady rain falling on a roof, our inclination may be to hunker down inside with a good book, but as long as there's no lightning, this really is a great time to get out and assess your stormwater dynamics. I challenge you, next time we have a good rainfall event, get out your umbrella and head outside. Watch how the water runs off your roof, maybe dripping from the eaves or through gutter downspouts, but where is it channeled from there? Does it flow along walkways and drives? Does it flow into ditches or to a small creek? What path does it take to get down to the lake? Draw a rough map of your property and each of the flow paths so you'll have a reference when you consider possible approaches for different areas. It's also helpful to do a back-of-the-envelope calculation to get a quick estimate of how much runoff your home generates. In this example, a 1,200 square foot home generates almost 750 gallons of water during a 1-inch rainfall event. With Northwest Arkansas's 45-inch average annual rainfall, that can translate into more than 30,000 gallons of runoff every year. You can do the same calculation for other impervious areas on your property, such as patios, sidewalks, and drives. I bet you'll be surprised at how much runoff is generated. Okay, now equipped with this new knowledge, the first step is to recognize what a tremendous resource you have. Don't think of runoff or excessive rainwater as a liability. Instead, recognize that it's free water that you can capture and use. Back to our 1,200 square foot home example, if we have 4 downspouts and assume that each one drains about 300 square feet of roof, one downspout alone can deliver 186 gallons during a 1-inch rainfall. Don't let that water escape to the lake. Collect it and instead use it in your gardens and landscape. One of the cheapest, easiest ways to collect rainwater is in a rain barrel. A 55-gallon food-grade barrel with a spigot is a great resource for watering potted plants, landscape beds, and vegetable gardens. Just be sure to completely enclose or screen the inlet to prevent mosquito breeding. When you install your barrel, raise it up on a cinder block or a 2x4 frame to increase head pressure and allow access to the spigot or hose bib. You'll find there's a tremendous range among rain barrel designs and prices. You can always purchase a prefabricated rain barrel either online, or a lot of local home improvement stores now carry them. You can build and maybe even decorate your own. You can also purchase several to run in a series, daisy-chained together to capture even more water. On a larger scale, a several hundred or 1,000-gallon cistern may be a good investment. Just be mindful that it will likely require more time and resources to install and maintain. Rain gardens are another good option to try and capture rainwater and minimize runoff. Rain gardens are landscape depressions that collect runoff water and allow it to soak slowly into the ground within 48 hours, so there's no standing water, and that means no mosquito problems. The bowl-shaped planting bed is amended with sand and compost to enhance the soil's infiltration and drainage capacity. This reverses the influence of impervious surfaces, so you're now reducing stormwater runoff and increasing groundwater recharge. By using native plants that thrive with our local temperature and rainfall regimes and pest and disease pressure, there's no need for additional irrigation, fertilizers, or pesticides once the plants are established, and that means minimized potential for stormwater pollution. To handle a typical rainfall event of an inch or so, a good rule of thumb is to make sure that the rain garden is about 1/3 of the size of the area it drains. Be sure to consider roofs and turf areas as well. Mark your garden perimeter and be sure to call Arkansas One Call at 811 before you begin digging to assure that you're not going to hit any utility lines. Once planted, add a good layer of shredded hardwood or recycled rubber mulch to prevent weeds and conserve moisture during long, hot, dry summer periods. Beyond capturing rainwater, techniques that help minimize the impervious areas in and around your home can also enhance infiltration and groundwater recharge. Just consider the area of a concrete patio. Are there other ways that you can maintain that same flat open space for relaxation and entertaining, or even storage, that wouldn't restrict water flow down into the soil? Options like pavers or flagstone on sand beds that are not sealed with mortar can be beautiful and effective in reducing runoff. In much the same way, stepping stones, mulch, or gravel may be good alternatives to concrete, asphalt, or sealed stone sidewalks and garden paths. Other engineered drainage techniques like French drains and man-made dry creek beds can also manage water by slowing runoff and/or moving it to locations that have better infiltration capacity. In cases of excessive ponding, soil excavation and backfilled gravel can do a good job of storing rainwater until it can slowly percolate down through the soil profile. Here you can see the before and after change. Finally, it's essential to disconnect impervious surfaces, so there are multiple opportunities for staggered spots for infiltration so that water can recharge the groundwater and minimize runoff. Think about your path or paths down to the lake. Is it a fairly straight channel that concentrates runoff flow and has erosive power? Or do you have opportunities to install switchbacks or things like terrace steps that might slow it down? Also consider the vegetation across your property, particularly in that little zone right next to the lake. This most likely falls within the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers jurisdiction, so you may be limited on land management options, but with adequate plant growth, this area certainly can serve as an important buffer protecting the lake from runoff. If at all possible, leave a no-mow zone so taller native grasses and shrubs can slow and filter runoff. So this concludes our LakeSmart section on runoff management. Hopefully you've gotten some ideas, a little bit on what runoff is, and maybe some insights into ways to manage things around your home. We just need to remember that we do all appreciate the lake as a resource, but we all also share the responsibility in protecting it.